Price action has been wild. On a short-term chart, you can see which support is being respected and as of now, which level is being a resistance. And that's not only in Bitcoin. You move on to Ether, you get to see something similar. You go look at the total altcoins excluding Ether, you get to see one trend line staying there as a healthy trend line. Now, why would I use the term healthy? Because the moment you zoom out, you get to see what this trend line means. And it's a long term trend line, at least medium to long term trend line. We are respecting that level for some time. Now, what does this mean? If that recent history repeats, you're about to see something similar in terms of price action. The news, the narratives, everything kind of goes into that direction if you do look at it at the right way. The market is showing you a lot of different news is evolving, and especially when you do look at the price action, you're like, the market is trying to price this in. Say you look at XRP on a long-term chart. This cannot be neglected, right? You are at that range at one point. You were watching like, okay, we are breaking that to the downside. It does not look good, right? As of now, we came back. We are still inside that range. So for us, it's important to maintain 0.47, 0.48 in the XRP price. And at least on a macro, you should be looking at this. And you should know if that asset which you are in love with is still above this level, which is a key accumulation or resistance level. Say, for example, you go into the Ether, you go into the Bitcoin, whichever chart you would like to. But if you do see that asset is above this range of accumulation, which is the previous supports turned into the resistance, is now a support, fine. That's what you want to write. Welcome to the Scientific Investor family, where the normal retail guys get to learn how to become the next top 10% of this world. Right now, when we do look at the crypto market, the market gives us a lot of different data. So here we are looking at the market after the daily close. First, we'll change onto a daily chart. We'd like to see what the price action shows us, because I would argue that this is important at this level, because this level, at least for last few months, it's valid. It's stayed as a clear support range. We've seen that week there, we have seen this week here, and right now we're doing something similar. And not only that, it's interesting because we now have this piercing candle setup. But if you do look at it, it's kind of an inside candle too at one point. So we have to now look at the volume to price action. We had a higher selling volume the last day. The price did drop higher compared to the previous candle. We now have 70 to 80% of the volume in selling compared to the last one. And if you do look at that, we can see 70 to 80 or 85% of bullish action. So bulls are not weak here. That's a good news. And that's a support. So usually if you do look at supports and see that the bulls are coming back alive, that's a good sign. So now we zoom a little bit out and then we will zoom in. But what do we want to see here? At any support, you want to see a price action on the candle, which shows you that it is trying to go back up. What do you see here? This candlestick pattern is an inverted hammer. You look at this on the candlestick pattern, look through the history. Like if you pull up the images and you're watching this, say you go look at the price action. If you see 10 charts and you see, okay, maybe 8 out of 10 or 9 out of 10 times this happens, the price slowly goes back up. Maybe there is a retest before you do go back up. Maybe there is no retest. All of these things are possible in the market. But right now, one thing is that key. When you get this, the textbook pattern, we need a candle close. That's important here. Right now, that's a 3-day candle, and you're still here. You just want to see that candle close in next 3 days. So once we get that as a candle close, that would show you the bullseye yes and they're trying to push it back to the upside. But the moment you step back on the weekly, say this is Bitcoin chart we're discussing about. We made a new local low with the wick here. Great. Perfect. We are watching that the RSI on a weekly is coming back down from the overbought levels. Now, let's go back in history and look at it each and every time. Here, when it was coming back to the downside, you still had the price being choppy, going back up, doing all these levels. So one was still doing good. It was providing you with a negative divergence. Then you come to this season, you're like, whoa, there is nothing which you can adopt from there because it's 100% manipulated. You go up, you come back down. You go up, you come back down. But one thing was so common back in that cycle, each and every time you drop, you kind of drop 30-40%, but you don't drop below the previous levels. Some of these times we have consolidated there, it's for sure, but you clearly make something like this. Great. Perfect. So now here we're watching this. We're looking at this. We had this level, we had this level. Now the price is way above that. We all agree on that. Now we have this, and here we are now. So we're still going up. Now, this time around, it's a 20-21% drop in each and every leg. Right now with the newest low which we made, we're close to that. Not accurate yet. We're close to that. To be accurate, we should be somewhat close to what? Yeah, 58,000. Now let's see if the whales want to repeat the history which we have seen in the past, the recent past, 21, 21, 21. If they're going to give us the 21, take it. Now if they don't, it may bounce back up from there. Because if everyone is expecting a 21% drop, maybe they won't give you that. That would be a perfect buying opportunity, just like this one, just like this one, just like this one. Most likely they won't give you that. But yes, we'll have to zoom back in to see what the hell they're doing here. Because the moment you zoom in and remove all these levels and just look at the current range of support resistance, this is what you're watching. Now, what are you watching? Okay, if you're confused about that, let's dig deep. You're looking at the price to the candlestick volume, right? This is that range you're talking about. You had one candle with a lot of selling pressure. Yes, it was not a small candle. It did deliver a big candle, but compared to what you have seen here, it was small. Okay, if that's not agreeable, fine. Let me know what you think there in the comment section below. But the next candle had very low buying volume. It's not a 1 hour candle, it's a 12-hour candle. We're splitting that daily candle into two to see what the hell is really happening. And here we are, we're watching that with that little bit of buying volume, the price came back up. Kind of erased all those selling activities. Then you had another increased buying volume. It didn't deliver an increase in that candlestick size. So right now, I would argue that this is kind of the Wyckoff spring here. You're going to come back down, chop a little bit here, and then travel up. That won't be a bad scenario because you do have a trend line kind of thing forming here. On a micro, you had this, which you kind of broke higher, which is good. Now this is a short term. If you do break that, your upside target kind of becomes this range, which is good. 70, 72, that kind of a range is going to be the short-term leg. But what do we want to see? We want to see a 1, 2, 3 kind of a chop. If we end up with the 1, 2 here, the ABC, then we want to see that 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 is like this. It go back up. It doesn't come back down here and it break this high. Because if not, we will see further downside. Because one of the key thing which we have to understand is we still have like 2 weeks to go for this monthly candle to end. And here we are on a monthly. Something, right? It's something. We discussed about this before. If we see something like this, denying what we have seen historically will be hard. We've seen something similar happening in a lot of different cycles, in a lot of different phases of the cycles, and it's going to be really hard to go there and neglect that. Whether it's at the top like that, whether it's at the bottom like this, that kind of showed you something, right? Yeah, I believe that. And if that's true, and you see that kind of a price action finally closing here, there is going to be massive shift in the market. Something is going to happen. Maybe it's the altcoin ETFs going alive. Money in the Bitcoin slowly starting to diversify into the altcoins, Ether, XRP, whatever the ETFs are going to be, right? There is something happening. I don't know what kind of surprise the market is going to give us. On a short term, it did surprise me. Believe me, when we were here, if you go back in the charts and look at this range, they around early Feb, close to the Feb 9, Feb 10 video, you'll see me talking about the 70 to 73 range, clearly. Now, we touched 74, that's true, but you know the measured move here, we plotted back up with that breakout, we did all of those. Now, from that perspective, if you do look at that, we kind of did a decent run up in the recent days. Now, what should we do, right? So if Bitcoin is to consolidate, make that top, drop back down, blah, 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 what would we see in the altcoins? And that's where the Bitcoin dominance comes into the market. We want to see whether the new money which is entering the market, it's focusing just on Bitcoin or it's entering into the altcoins as well. Now, just like what we discussed in the recent price action, this is something similar. On a daily, not on a monthly, on a daily. Now you slowly zoom out on a 3-day, you're like, okay, we're still kind of, breaking to the upside, staying above that level. It's still holding on to those key levels, which is good in terms of bullish strength for the entire market, actually. But now, when you zoom in, we want to actually see each leg showing you that it's to drop. How do you look at that? If you still see a lower high, lower low pattern, that usually shows you the strength is weakening. So this was a higher high, which was good. This was a higher low, which was good. But this created a lower low. That showed the trend is weakening, and that was confirmed here with a lower high. Right? Now you made another lower high and another lower low, which means you're starting to trend like this. Now, is it going to be a bull flag? Is it going to break back up? We'll have to see. The moment we get a divergence, we'll understand. As of now, do you have a divergence? No, you're following the price action, which is good. For us in the alts, that's good. So we would like to see that price action coming true on a daily chart, then on a 3-day chart, which shows more and more money is entering into the altcoin market. And that's why we were talking about this in the altcoin segment. This is at that support, a macro support. The moment you zoom out, you pull out everything from there and you try to digest that information as clear as possible. What you do see is that the macro accumulation zone that was broken to the upside. Now that's a support. Great. Next level was at this point. You broke that to the upside. Now we are retesting that with a lot of chop. That's cool. Because historically, we have seen something similar. Great. Now, when you do plot that trend line back into this, we can kind of argue that, okay, that was a great run up and that was a huge pullback. Now, on the same market, if we come on to the daily close, the altcoin side of things, we're trying to see what the hell we are watching. So you had reducing amount of selling volume. reducing amount of selling. You had increasing amount of buying. You had increasing amount of buying activity. So unlike Bitcoin, which failed to bring in an engulfing candle, altcoins did bring a bullish stuff, a bullish engulfing candle, which is good. So when you actually pull that apart, what you're watching is a possible double bottom formation, which is again, something we were watching. We want to see something like that. The news, the narrative, it's good. Meaning this means the economy outside, whether it's country A, country B, country C, we're watching a lot of developed nations having the trouble with all the money printing which they went through, which is all the helicopter money. And on the other side, this is what, now we know these guys have been talking about it since the SEC screwed XRP, which was really bad. We got hit, right? Now, if we do look at what we are watching, the regulations are coming in, especially for the stablecoin side. And even Brad considers that as a huge step forward, because Brad was giving you a thought process which kind of aligns with my interpretation, which I had before, saying the way stablecoins are being built on top of XRP is to avoid the volatility of crypto and still use crypto. So you're on the XRP ledger, but you don't have the volatility of XRP. You can use XRP for an instantaneous transaction. You don't get that volatility, and you're still using the ledger without that volatility. And I mean, that's a huge thing. So if that bill passes on that stable coin side of things, it's going to be huge. So the stable coin market value is now at 150 billion. They expect it to grow to 2.8 trillion. Wow. They're literally talking close to 2x in that market. So you're at 150 billion and you're talking about like 20x increase in that side of things, which is not a small movement in the market, right? So when you do note about that 20x movement, what would be that factor which pushes it to that highs? Because I was looking through this tweet and I was like, whoa, that's something to look at. There's a lot of these different projects which has the utility now coming together. And that can be the reason why we may see the money flowing out of Bitcoin. And that's not a short-term thought process. We've been on this. We've been talking about this. If you do see something, I would personally like to see a blow off like this and then a downside, which usually gives you the best downside, right? So if we do this kind of a thing, that's going to be great. To the downside, it's going to be cool. We may come back down here. But during that time, it's going to be panic again, for sure. So you need to know what we are watching, what the possibilities are, and how whales may play with our emotions. This is one of that. They may do that. And if they do, they'll shake the tree. Don't fall down. Hang on there. Now, if you like to look at hundreds of different assets in crypto market, which you literally have right now, starting to break, starting to move, all those things, some of them are still in the red flag territory. If you're a long-term guy with next 5 years on hand, yes, that's accumulation range you're buying. If you're looking for next 3 months, 5 months, 6 months, then you want something above the accumulation range. And that's why we're going through the Ask for TA session right now here in the group. So each and every one of those thousands of members get to see whether that's a red flag with the macro, not the micro ranges like this, the macro range to look for. So if you want to join that, use the link in the description below for the Patreon in YouTube or in the bio on Twitter. And guys, if you haven't smashed that like button yet, I would request you, do that for me. I'll meet you guys on the next video. Bye for now.